Welcome to the show. This is a special Cinestrange edition. Our guest today, director John Hough, sitting right next to me, famous for his movies Breast Target, The Legend of Hell House, Twins of Evil, or Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry. Thanks for having us. And how are you, sir? And how do you like the festival so far?
Well, thanks to you. I like the festival very much so far. I was able to see a wonderful film yesterday, which was Chariots of Fire by Hugh Hudson, British director. It rates as one of the best films that I've ever seen. I'd never got a chance to see it in England. Came over here, and there it was. And I'm happy to have seen that masterpiece.
Yeah, it's a shame we missed it, but work, so we just could start today. Let us talk a little bit about your career. Just give the audience a little overview, and I like to start the time before your active time as a director. When you were a young boy or a teenager, what are your main influences? What movies inspired you most? Yes, what movies?
Okay, well, I was trying to be a film director from a very young age. I was 10 years old, 11 years old when I was carrying a camera and trying to be a film director, but I couldn't get in. You had to have a special ticket to work in the British film industry.
Yes.
And I didn't have that ticket, so I had to do other jobs. And I went to work for the local government, the state government, and I took the exam to be a flying pilot over Australia as a medical officer.
Okay.
And I failed the exam by 1 point.
Oh God.
You had to have 46%. I had 45%. And if for 1 point, I would be flying all over Australia at this moment. But so I didn't get that. I then had to find a job. I found a job in the stock exchange.
Okay.
And I was earning very good money when suddenly an interview came up for the film industry.
Okay.
And I dropped everything and took this job in the film industry at the very, very bottom of the film industry, making tea and laying the cables out. And I started from the very bottom.
Okay. And then the Avengers came and was your first big deal of a job as a second unit director. How you got into this?
No, just before the Avengers was the Saint series with Roger Moore.
Yeah.
And who is later to be James Bond, as we know. And so I was doing second unit directing on the Saint. And then I moved over to the Avengers to do second unit direction. And then that led to me directing the Avengers full time.
Okay. And how do you felt when you were in charge the first time as the director, not the second unit?
Well,
is it a big difference or?
There's a huge difference, but when I was a trainee, I was at two famous studios, Elstree Studios and Pinewood Studios, and I had this job of going onto the different sets and making tea for the great directors of this particular time, and I was able to watch them work, and I had fantastic training. I saw Alfred Hitchcock at work. I saw Otto. I saw many big names at work, including Orson Welles, who I was later to direct. But as I was a young man, I was able to go around to all these different stages, making a cup of tea for the big directors, like David Lean as well.
Yeah.
Big, and I was able to watch them work and their problems, how they solve problems with actors who are difficult and things like this. And so when I got the chance, I was very highly trained, and I didn't find it difficult.
Okay. Your first movies have been The Legend of Robin Hood, The Wolf's Head, on Twins of Evil for Hammer, and in between the Eyewitness, Sudden Terror. How do you got into the famous Hammer Studios, and how was working for this popular company?
How did it come that I was working for Hammer?
Yeah.
Well, I did. Wolf's Head was the first picture that I made.
It was a pilot for. It was supposed to be a pilot for a TV series.
It was going to be a pilot for a television series. Well, not a television series. It was going to be a pilot for a series of films, not on television. And so I made this show first, and then from there, I got the call from Hammer. I mean, I did other films, but I got the call from Hammer, the first to go and work on a Hammer film, Twins of Evil, which is showing here in the festival.
I'm looking forward to. How was working with the famous Peter Cushing? You worked with him twice, later again.
I directed him twice. Peter Cushing was so professional. Excuse me. Unfortunately, his wife had just died before we made the film, and so I think he needed the film to take his mind off his problems of missing her, etc. And so he dedicated himself to making the film, and that's why it's probably the best performance he's ever made, which was in Twins of Evil.
Yeah, later you shot Treasure Island, was working with Orson Welles as same easy as working with Peter Cushing? Or?
No. Peter Cushing was a professional that would be always on time and could do whatever you wanted to do. Orson Welles was a lot more difficult. First of all, he'd written the script. So Treasure Island was written by him.
Years before, when you...
Yes, he wanted to direct it himself. But he couldn't find anybody to give him the money if he was directing it at this point, because he'd had some unfinished films. Yeah. And so they wouldn't give him a contract to do this film. So I was hired to do the film, which he really wanted to do. So you can see I had a lot of difficult situations with it.
Yeah. Can you explain to the audience what it is to be a co-director? Because you shared the credits with Andrea Bianchi and Antonio Margheriti, and you just directed the English language version?
There was
it just later the others?
There was no other director. I don't know about this at all.
It's on the IMDb, International Movie Database.
Well, because I shot the opening scenes were shot in Italy.
Okay.
But I never met these other directors, and I shot the whole film. I think they were put on it for financial reasons.
Okay.
To get money subsidy from Europe, but they certainly never appeared. Say the two names again.
Andrea Bianchi and Antonio Margheriti. The second one is very famous Italian.
Antonio Margheriti.
Yeah.
Their names have to be put on it for some different reason, but they didn't shoot any film, any part of the film. Maybe
they just made the Italian language version after you shot in English.
That's very probably. Yeah, they may have done that.
What I like most of your films is The Legend of Hell House. I like the tone, and I like the camera of Alan Hume. Can you describe, what do you think, why is this film one of yours who's still very exciting to the audience today? What's the recipe for a good film?
What's the recipe? It may well be, but The Legend of Hell House is a lot about not what you see, but it's what you don't see.
The less you see, the more you get. The
less you see, the more you get. And the film is about tension. It is about building up to a situation that can be terrifying, but you don't see anything. And as the film goes on, you're not seeing any exploding heads or any blood or anything. There's very little in it in the whole film. It's all about suspense, and it's all about there's some interesting things in it. For instance, the interesting effect on it was when you see the shadow of the two naked people on the wall. Yeah. And they're caressing each other and making love to each other. It's only shadows. You never see the real people. That sort of thing. It's.
Was it also a thing to avoid censorship at this time? for nudity or something?
No, because we had the twins. I mean, twins.
Okay.
They were both in it all the time in nude. Yeah.
Okay. After this, you went to continue your career in America. Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry,
the
yes. Disney films, The Witch Mountains and The Watcher in the Woods, Incubus and the Triumphs of the Man Called Horse.
Yeah.
Why this step? Was this by coincidence, or do you want to go to America?
Oh, I really wanted to go to America. Especially, I wanted to work for Walt Disney and do films for Walt Disney, because their films last for years and years. And even today, I get people today come up to me and say, thank you for the films that I did with the Escape to Witch Mountain and Return to Witch Mountain. The older people of today who saw these, they grew up on these films when they was like 8 years old, and they still come up and say thank you for those films I made all those years ago. So that's what I wanted to happen when I worked for Disney. So I was really happy to go and work for them. Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry was a different thing altogether. It was a hard action film, and it's one of Quentin Tarantino. Well, it's not one of. It's Quentin Tarantino's favorite film.
For Death Proof, a little bit.
If you see Death Proof,
yeah.
At the end of Death Proof, you'll see Quentin Tarantino says thanks to John Hough.
Yeah.
Why did he say that? I talked to him about it.
Okay.
He said he shot on the same locations as me when I made Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry. And it was his, in his opinion, it was the best action film that he'd seen. That's why he said thanks at the end of it, because he based Death Proof on seeing that film.
Would you say it is a film of the new Hollywood cinema or not? Because it was at the time, but not the typical political new Hollywood movie, more an entertaining one, but with a sad ending, not so.
Well, we'll come on to the sad ending first, and then I'll look back on the film. The sad ending was not in the script, not in the feature film, and I did that myself without asking anybody. This turned out to be a big problem because we couldn't make the sequel or the prequel. We couldn't make more with the same cast because I'd killed them all off.
Okay.
But I wanted to make the message that speed kills. So if you're going to drive at 100 miles an hour every day, you're going to die. So you better not speed. You better not speed. And the thing about the film was all the stunt work. We didn't have computer generated CGI, computer generated images. We had no special effects equipment. Everything had to be done at the correct speed. There was no under cranking on the camera or over cranking, speeding it up. We didn't do any of that. And Quentin Tarantino heard me say this, that I was going to do the film without any unnatural effect. And he did the same. He said because of that, when he did Death Proof, he shot it the same way. His film has no special effects and it's all at the natural speed and shot at that sort of speed. So I did it. I did the all-action film because I'd done a lot of action before, and I just wanted to say, speed kills.
Okay. After these movies, you made the Biggles, the American Gothic, the Holing, and you called it a career 2002 with the Bad Karma. In between, you shot some British TV movies. Was it a step you wanted to go at this time, or why did you finish directing in the new millennium? Do you want to become, I've heard, the producer, more stepping away from the...
I did become a producer because I went to work for a big company and I then eventually took over this company and ran this company, and we made films and we made a television series and we did a lot of work, and I became more of a producer than director. But I had a lot of difficulties with some of the films you've mentioned. I didn't always go easy and smooth. I had quite a lot of problems, but I wanted to be a director. I wanted to be a producer because I wanted to produce my own films, find my own money, and then I could do it any way that I wanted.
Yeah.
That's why I became a producer.
You told a colleague of mine in another interview, you spent one time a lot of money in one of your own films and lost a lot of it.
I did.
Can you tell us this?
It's very painful for me.
Which movie it was?
I prefer not to say the movie.
Okay.
But I always invested money into my own films.
Yeah.
And if someone was going to put money up for my films, I always put my own money in.
Yeah.
To
convince him.
To convince them. Like, if I was going to lose money, I'd also lose my own money. My dream was to make a film where no one could challenge me. I wanted to be the director. I wanted to be the producer. I wanted to be the distributor. I wanted to be the writer.
Yeah.
And that way no one could censor, no one could cut the film, no one could re-edit the film, because I would control everything. And I got my chance. The chance came, I made this film that I don't want to talk about because it's too painful.
Okay.
I had total control, and I wrote it, directed it, produced it, and it was a big failure.
Okay. But what are the 3 movies you like most, and what are the 3 movies
from my own films?
Yeah, you like least, and why?
Okay, the top 3 films that I like is Dirty Mary Crazy Larry is in the top 3. The Legend of Hell House is in the top 3, and the Disney film Escape to Witch Mountain is in the top 3.
It's
They're my
the
top
first
3.
one, or is it the second one? With
the first one, Escape to Witch Mountain,
with Donald Pleasence.
Donald Pleasence, yeah.
Okay, and the bottom 3?
The worst films I've made. Oh, it's so painful. I can. The Howling 4 was a very difficult production for me, and what happened was that I made the film, but in the original script there was no nudity.
Yeah.
And the company, when they saw the finished film, they wanted to sell the film. They wanted to do nudity. But my star wouldn't do it. The person that played in Howling 5, she didn't want to do nudity. So they shot nude material and put it into my film.
The first minutes, I've read this.
And, it wasn't what I intended to do. And we're talking about control. I had no control of the film. And so the film today is not the film that I tried to make.
Yeah. Okay. So we come to an end. Speaking about producing, your son stepped into your footsteps. Can you tell us about his latest movie, the Human Race?
Human Race. Yeah, he's over in Los Angeles and he's making his own horror films. We've got a totally different style. His style is the visual, and you see exciting, things, the big heads exploding and blood going everywhere, and this, that, and the other. We have a different style, and so I do the films where you don't see it.
He's more graphic.
He does films where you do see it.
Yeah.
And going back, you see, I just want to make one statement about the films I've done that have been bad and lost money and unsuccessful. You learn a lot from that. You can learn more from failure than success. So I've had both. I've had a lot of success. I've had big time failures. So my expertise is complete.
Yeah. Okay. I will finish with the question: what are you going to do the next days? Which film you wanted to see at the festival? Do you have some?
Which film do I want to see at the film festival?
Yeah.
Well, it was definitely the one by Hugh Hudson, Chariots of Fire, was what I really wanted to see. I thought it was a masterpiece. I think he did a fantastic job of directing, and I'm so glad I was here to see it.
Can you still watch your own movies, or are you already satisfied seeing it over the years?
No, I mean, I certainly can't watch the failures. It's too painful to watch that. So I don't watch that. Do
But
I
Hell
watch?
House,
I can watch my own ones at festivals.
Yeah.
But I don't run them at home. No.
Okay. Thank you for being at the show. We are proud to have you and enjoy the festival. Thank you very much.
Thank you.